You might think you'd thrive out here with a cowboy hat and dusty boots, riding off into the sunset. The West has been mythologized for a century, a wide-open canvas of adventure and freedom. In stories and movies, it promises endless plains and thrilling encounters. But the real Wild West of the late 1800s was unforgiving and brutal. We will walk through an entire day from dawn to dawn on this wild frontier. By day's end, you will see why even a single sunrise could prove fatal. This narrative is not about quick-draw gunfights or romantic idols. Instead, you will feel the morning chill on your neck, the sting of dust in your eyes, and hear coyotes yipping under starry skies. You'll accompany our narrator through a desert dawn to a murderous midday sun, into a lawless afternoon, and through a night of lurking threats. You'll confront impossible shortages of water and food, relentless manual labor, disease, vermin, and the ever-present danger of violence. Through it all, by tomorrow's sunrise, you will know why life on the frontier was nearly impossible, why you wouldn't survive a day in the wild. West, for context, even the US government realized how harsh this land was. The 1862 Homestead Act offered 160 acres to settlers, but explorer John Wesley Powell cautioned that 160 acres wasn't enough for success in these arid lands. Even government-granted farms struggled here. Asterisk, asterisk, before you even reach this lonely spot. The journey westward could have killed you. By the 1850s, hundreds of thousands of emigrants braved wagon trains and horseback routes to reach the frontier. The trip itself was a gauntlet. Wide rivers to cross, rugged mountains, and thunderous buffalo herds along the way. Over 300,000 pioneers trekked the Oregon and California trails between 1840 and 1860, and many never made it. Along those dusty roads, entire wagon trains could be wiped out by cholera outbreaks, flash floods, or broken wheels. Drowning in swift rivers was common, as most pioneers were unable to swim. Wagons overloaded with supplies often overturned on steep grades. Even surviving the travel hazards did not guarantee safety. In fact, legend says that cowboy gunslinger Clay Allison never died in a shootout. He survived the long trek to the west only to perish in a simple wagon accident when an axle broke. Imagine your wife laboring alongside you with a baby on her lap, all hoping to reach a homestead claim. They scavenged prairie fires for food and slept under thin blankets by campfires. But at every river crossing, another family might vanish. You may have lost half the water barrels when one wagon fell into quicksand. By the time you set foot on the plains themselves, you've already pushed human endurance to the limit. If you're here now, consider how many others turned back or died before sunrise. The frontier's first casualty was often the trip itself. Asterisk, asterisk. The next morning, you awake to a world wrapped in cold grey light. You'd thought you knew cold, but this is something new. Even in summer, the desert air can drop to the 40s at first light. In winter, it can freeze well below zero. You feel every blast of chill as your breath puffs out. Your shelter is scant, rough logs or sod walls patched with mud, and a roof that leaks wind. There's no heater inside, only a dying fire and threadbare blankets. You slide off your straw-filled bedroll onto the cold floor, and your feet are numb instantly. Outdoors, the prairie stretches in every direction. The only color is a pale, dew-covered grass under the weak sun. You squint through the dawn haze. In the distance, a herd of cattle stands still, their breath fogging the air. If this is a ranch, feeding the herd will be your first chore. Pioneers often began each morning by milking cows and feeding livestock. Imagine leaning over a weary cow to hand milk frosty milk into a tin bucket, if the cow even lets you in the pre-dawn cold. Hungry horses whinny in the stall. You break a chunk of stale cornbread for each dot. As you step outside, a fine dust covers everything. Settlers knew their cabins were always dirty. List keepers complained that frontiersmen suffered with endless bugs and snakes as house guests. You brush an aunt off the porch. Underfoot, wooden boards or bare earth floor creaks or you recall a neighbor's joke. Their floor was so dusty they had to pour water on it nightly to keep the choking dust down. This morning, small drops of water remain in the corners, dried dust and grime waiting to swirl up as you walk. The bitter cold stings your fingers. You pile a fresh log on the fireplace and strike flint to rekindle the flame. In the smoky light, your eyes meet the sight of your ragged clothes. Stitching is coming undone, your shirt still worn thin from yesterday's labor. Settlers had to clean and darn by hand, sharing needle and thread among family. You boil water over the fire for coffee, wishing for lye soap. Frontier families often boiled creek water for bath or washing, but today there's only kettle coffee. You gulp the bitter brew to warm yourself, feeling the day's first energy. A low, cold wind sighs through the cracks, a reminder that comfort is earned here. Asterisk, asterisk, water. Something taken for granted where you're from is a precious rarity on the plains. The morning coffee went down, emptying your only canteen. Now, after breakfast, you haul that empty metal pail down to the creek or windmill. If you're lucky, a trickle of fresh water awaits. More often, the water has turned to mud or dried up in summer. There are no pumps or wells in many parts of the West. Every drop must be carried by hand from the nearest stream or spring. You trudge, each step sloshing through scrub grass, until you find water pooling in a hollow. Safety is a concern. You filter the murky creek water with a dirty cloth, settling all the sand to the bottom. People back east didn't think about it, but out west pioneers learned to boil water to prevent cholera or typhoid. You haul a heavy kettle back up to the fire and watch it boil for a full 10 minutes. Only then do you feel it's safe to drink. Historian accounts stress that for journeys here, securing enough safe water for both men and animals often determined the success or failure of a journey. Today, it means the difference between life and a weakened death by afternoon. You pour cool water into your canteen, and it already feels warm in the sun. You let yourself drink deeply, but you know it is still not enough. Explorers later advised carrying a full gallon of water per person in desert crossings, an impossible luxury. You have only a few pints. In the midday heat, which is merciless out here, that amount will vanish too quickly. Yet for now, even sips of water bring relief. You feel thirst in the parched corners of your mouth. Without these drinks, you'd be panting and dizzy. As you trek back, you glance at your horse's heaving flanks. It too is saved from immediate death by that small refill. Small victory. You made it through morning without collapse. Tomorrow, who knows? Asterisk, asterisk now, the day's true labor begins. Out here, rest was a luxury that few could afford. If you're on a ranch, you ride out to gather cattle or check fences. If you're a farmer, you plant or harvest. Either way, every task demands your full strength from dawn till dusk. There is no tractor, no automatic milker, only muscle and will. You might have heard legends of how easy frontier life was, but those were tall tales. Your arms ache already from hauling water. Now you mount a horse and spur off to work. Picture what others face. Branding season means branding iron to a calf's hide. Screaming from pain and smoke-stinging eyes. Fences crumble under high winds and must be rebuilt board by board. Wagon wheels, already cracked, need ongoing repairs. On long cattle drives, men walked behind horses for miles, the stirrup cutting into their feet like a dull knife. Every step feels like digging into gravel barefoot. The philosopher of cattle drives wrote that cowboys labored through grueling, non-stop work branding cattle, herding for miles, and fixing saddles or fences. By midday you laugh bitterly. This describes your reality. Heavy tools dig into your hands. Splitting a log takes all your weight against a chopping block. Each swing of the axe nearly throws you off balance. Riding a stubborn mule for hours has robbed your seat into a bruise. Cooking on an iron skillet means standing over coals that penetrate your shirt and sear your skin. And you still have to mind the livestock. This morning 2 calves got past the gate. Now you and a couple of helpers must chase them down before they wander off. Under the scorching sun, you lasso one by throwing a loop with rope, but the rope snaps and thwacks your knuckles. Every injury here, no matter how minor, is a setback you can't afford. Noon approaches and the heat is fierce, but you dare not stop. Hunger gnaws as you work. Lunch was a thin stew of beans and salted pork, quickly eaten, but there's no break until the sun does. Across the plains, others share this fate. wives chopping wood in houses that still only have canvas walls, children bringing hay to feed livestock. On homesteads, even the women and kids had their share of daily labor, spinning yarn, churning butter, sewing torn clothes, and fetching more water. Everyone works until dark. The land demands it, and it doesn't care if you break. By midday, the prairie is under a blazing sun. Temperatures easily reach the triple digits, with no shade to be found. The sky is cloudless and a harsh blue. This emptiness means the sun's rays heat the ground and bounce upward like an oven. Your sweat instantly boils off your skin. You hold a hand in the sun, it burns. The very air seems to shimmer and dance. At times like this, travelers would douse their hats in water and tie damp bandanas around necks. You pour some cold water on your neck to try to cool it, feeling momentary relief as it evaporates. Even today, you could fry an egg on a rock. By late morning, your small canteen is warm inside. You ration water carefully, sipping a bit at a time. A historian notes this unforgiving climate was described as a great American desert, and explorers would not cross it without gallons of water. You pray tomorrow's travel lies near a known spring. But for now, the threat is also overhead. The sun. The prairie can flip from dry to stormy in minutes. You notice clouds gathering on the far horizon. The wind kicks up dust, and suddenly the sky darkens rapidly. Out west, monsoon thunderstorms or tornadoes can form with little warning. You pull leather straps tighter on your gear and look for shelter. Nearby, a rocky outcrop offers scant cover. You and a helper pile dirt on the large fire you built, hoping the breeze doesn't fan hot coals. Moments later, a clap of thunder cracks. Soon, rain lashes down, hissing as it hits the dusty earth. Hail, pebbles smash your hat and sting your face. You crouch under a ledge, heart thundering with each bolt that lights up the sky. The storm holds you there for an hour, drenching and muddying everything. You watch in relief as the clouds move on, revealing once again searing light. Around you, the plains are covered in puddles and broken stalks. The flash flood rinses the best of the day's heat away, but it also washes out shallow trails and drowns one of your sheep near a ravine. Settlers often said the weather out here took no prisoners. You crawl back to your work with soaked clothes clinging to you, thankful only that you weren't at higher elevation when lightning struck. You dodged another disaster. For now. Tomorrow's storms will come, too, whether you're ready or not. Asterisk, asterisk, even in daylight, human danger was ever present on the frontier. This isn't Disneyland. Every stranger could be a threat. You tighten your coat and scan the horizon constantly. Bandits, horse thieves, and drifters roamed these plains. Historians note that bandits and horse thieves posed a serious danger to isolated travelers. Well-known outlaws like Jesse James or Butch Cassidy thrived precisely because many drovers were alone and unarmed. Today, every man in your party keeps a rifle or six-shooter within reach. Yet carrying a gun was a double-edged sword. Paradoxically, many frontier towns later demanded gun bans after witnessing too much bloodshed. By the 1880s, towns like Abilene and Medora forbade holsters within city limits. Even Theodore Roosevelt recalled his young Dakota town followed a no shooting in the streets rule. But miles from town, you have no such luck. On these open roads you might be your own law. So you ride with one hand on the reins and the other on your revolver. For now, it's daytime, but still your pulse spikes at every movement. A dust column in the distance could be nothing, or it could be a gang lying in wait. Once, you heard of a traveler who offered drink to a man on horseback. A handshake later, the man drew and nearly ended his life. On the prairie, disputes are settled quickly. A gambler's bad hand or a jealous drunken fight can escalate to bullets in a heartbeat. There is no judge here, no jail for miles. Often, a single sharp-eyed lawman was all that stood between survival and slaughter. Without him near, you must be that wary lawman yourself. So you press on with eyes peeled. Around you, the faintest sounds echo. The snap of your horse's legs, the jig of metal spurs on leather. Even the slightest sound of something falling could mean ambush. All you can do is lean forward in the saddle, fingers twitching near your trigger, and hope for daylight. Because out here, even the most honest man trusted only his own gun. And even that, as history showed, might not be enough. Asterisk human bandits aren't the only predators on the plains. By late afternoon, the heat drives out every dangerous creature. Snakes slither across the trail under shrubs, rattlers, copperheads, and water moccasins. They hide where you least expect them, under rocks, in sandy dirt, even curled under your horse's blanket. A swift bite can kill you before nightfall, and without anti-venom, the cure was simply tourniquet, prayers, and hope. You tighten your boots and listen for the telltale rattle. Each rustle in the grass makes you freeze. You've heard that pioneers avoided stepping on any shadow that could hide a snake's triangular head. Wolves prowl the dusk in packs. You recall stories of cattlemen who shot wolves by day and hanged them by night to protect livestock. Now you drop to one knee and shine a flashlight to reveal two yellow eyes in the distance. It seems this time they slunk off. Mountain lions, cougars haunt the rocky outcrops and ridges, silent as hunters. 1 in 6 success of any ambush is enough to make you never wander alone after dark. If you startled a herd of buffalo today, you'd face instant death by trampling. Buffalo may seem peaceful, but each animal weighs over a ton, and even a buffalo hunt could turn deadly horns in panic or stampeding herds proved unforgiving. Long ago, pioneers told of timid cattle chased into a mixed herd of buffalo. That day many men were tossed aside like rag dolls. When you crossed the plains, any distant thundering in the grass could mean a runaway herd. You always steer wide around them if you can. Even insects and small animals hunt here. Ticks cling to your ankles and might carry fevers. Fleas crawl in your sleeping bed. Scorpions seek shade in your boots if you set them down carelessly. You brush away a tiny spider that dove for a cool crevice. Later, you'll inspect those bite marks. Head lice were a constant plague on the trail. You already feel some itch at your scalp. Each minute detail of nature tested survival. When you emerge on the other side of this day, it will not be because nature turned gentle, only that you met every challenge head-on and were lucky to live ... by afternoon. You feel grimy from head to toe. Sweat, dirt, and soot have caked on your skin. Without soap or showers, frontier folk often waited weeks to wash. In winter, you'd only wash with icy creek water, which felt like torture on chapped skin. You crouch by a stream and splash water on your face. It's barely warm now, and leaves a film of dust on your cheeks. Settlers' journals describe how families lived in a literal bacteria paradise of dirt. Worse, you notice a patch of redness on your calf, perhaps a chigger bite or infection creeping under the skin. There were no stethoscopes out here. Even sympathetic doctors were days away. Historians note that pioneers carried only a medicine chest, a handful of bandages, a bottle of quinine, a mortar, and some cayenne pepper. If you had a fever, someone might dose you with quinine or bloodletting. Many frontier doctors were just farmers who read some medical pamphlets. Without real medicine, small wounds often festered. An open cut, say from the axe blow earlier, can become gangrenous overnight here. You apply a strip of cloth dipped in whiskey to your leg, the only disinfectant at hand. Sanitation is almost non-existent. In many settlements, there were no indoor toilets. Latrines, outhouses sat outside, made of wood with no plumbing, just holes dug below. Even in towns, they were often 2 stories high from overuse. Last night you used an outdoor privy, disinfecting it with a pinch of poison oak behind you, because flies and smell were guaranteed. There was no toilet paper. Pioneers used pages from an old newspaper or even leaves. You find a scratch on your hand. Without antiseptic, this minor nick could kill. People often washed hands in the same basin used for washing dishes. A dishwater reused, spreading whatever germs were there. Mealtime was a gamble. You ate soup from a communal pot after dipping your same spoon that scraped salty beans. Food was easily contaminated. Spoilage set in quickly in the heat. Diarrhea was so common it was called grip of the stomach in letters. Many more pioneers died of cholera, dysentery, typhoid, and smallpox than from gunshot. If your stomach flips from last night's stew, you'd have no relief. The only treatment was a shot of whiskey and lying still, hoping the fever didn't rise. Even a cough could be spotted as tuberculosis. Without a clean bed or warm soup, these little illnesses were deadly luxuries you don't have. Finally, the sun lowers again. You have survived the blistering day, but this is no time to relax. The cattle and horses are fed, and the sun hangs on the horizon in an orange haze. You gather firewood and start a campfire. Its warm glow, a small comfort against the vast, dark prairie. The first stars appear, and you plug holes in your hat with wax to keep the chill from your skull. You cook a meager dinner, perhaps some bacon and hard biscuits. Everyone eats hungrily but silently, still watching the darkening edges of the camp. The quiet is deceiving. At any moment, trouble could reappear. If near a tiny frontier town, the day's settlers might run to their saloons by now, and gunfire could erupt over spilled whiskey. You heard a story of a town that disarmed everyone at sundown, but this is not one of those towns. Even here in the open, there are no laws beyond the reach of a barrel. So one person always keeps one eye open. You rotate with the others, while one builds the fire higher. You keep watch, facing the dark prairie. Night brings new predators. Wolves you heard howling might be circling. Coyotes creep, drawn by the scent of horses, while mountain lions may see pockets of light to stalk. In your camp, you reload your rifle in case something stumbles through the shadows. Around you, others poke at the coals or pass a canteen quietly. Conversation falls to whispers. Anyone foolish enough to wander off alone now might never return. Stillness is broken by rustling grasses or a distant owl. Every noise feels amplified. The warm fire keeps snakes away for a bit, but you know they wait for a chance. In this twilight, even with fire and friends, you feel exposed. Each of you sleeps lightly. One man has to keep clearing gunfire out of his mind while the other rests. None of you can truly relax. A night on the plains is a night of tension until the relief of dawn's light. Asterisk, asterisk, midnight creeps by. The fire is now merely glowing embers. A breeze sweeps in, and the cold starts to burn again. Your shoulders, not under your thin blanket, you could use a second coat. Nearby, the sound of coyotes howling grows nearer. You imagine a shapely wolf or bear outline creeping along the tree line. Dogs begin to bark somewhere on the horizon. You wish you had a dozen dogs of your own, but all you have is silence and a rifle. Parasites are still awake. You feel an itch crawling on your forehead. Only now do you recall you saw a tick fall off one of your boots earlier. Good luck, because no malaria, pills or antibiotics come with this ride. Frontier doctors' orders were often primitive. Swallow saltpeter or take a slug of whiskey. You apply camphor from your medicine bag to that bug bite on your arm, though you doubt it will help. Even breathing in must be done carefully now to avoid frostbite on tongue and lungs. You lay awake, restless. Every instinct is on fire. The faintest sound makes you sit up. At 2 a.m., you dream of wolves dragging you away by your leg, then jerk awake to reality. In your final weary moments, you count the positions of stars. You wonder if you'll be here when they rise again, or if tonight is your last. Even if you fall asleep, it's only for moments at a time. The frontier night is silent only on the surface. Beneath it hides disease, predators, and who knows what else. When morning comes, you will be exhausted, but you must survive it just the same. Asterisk, asterisk, dawn returns, reluctantly. If you are still alive, you've beaten incredible odds. Now tally up what you faced. Thirst, water was scarce. You fought to get just enough, walking miles to that creek and boiling it for safety. Tomorrow it might all be gone. Hunger, your stomach growled on and off, stuffed only with beans and a few scraps of jerky, the daily allowance. Without proper food, you ran on fumes. Pioneer journals describe extreme hunger. Families were sometimes forced to slaughter and eat their own horses when rations ran out. Today you ate just enough to avoid collapse. Whether you endured extremes, frigid night, and then 100 degrees Fahrenheit sun. By mid-morning, a storm nearly took your life. The land is indifferent to your suffering. Hard labor, from dawn till dusk, every muscle in your body screamed. Even a match could be lit in your hands with flames from the blaze of your sweat. Historical accounts attest that exhaustion and injuries were common under this workload. You have no energy reserve left. Violence, bandits could have struck any moment. You escaped by vigilance, but even towns tried to eliminate the problem with laws because too many people were dying. Without lawmen around, you were your own judge and jury, and that's no comfort when someone else has a gun. Wildlife, one misstep on a snake or misread of a herd's behavior could be fatal. You sidestepped rattlesnakes, dodged wolves, and ran from bulls. Every creature here is a hazard. Health, that little scrape or cough could kill you by nightfall tomorrow. Frontier medics were basically most had only lint and whiskey for treatment. Without medicine, every cut could become gangrene. If your stomach hadn't turned at that spoiled food, your kidneys might have by now. You are vulnerable in a way no modern person is. Hygiene. You have lived without clean sheets, soap, or even a proper latrine. In pioneer times, people washed rarely. Lice and fleas infested everyone. Unsanitary conditions turned epidemics into killers. You have probably swallowed more germs today than a city child would in a year. Isolation. If you scream, nobody hears. The nearest doctor or deputy is a day's ride away. You have no backup, no infrastructure, no rescue. You are utterly on your own. Any one of these could have killed you. Combined, they're a gauntlet no ordinary person could run. Those who settled the West had unbelievable fortune or iron constitution. You, a modern dreamer, barely lasted 24 hours. A survivor here would need luck, no rattlesnake nest at his feet, strength to haul twice the water, and a certain ruthlessness: shoot first, ask questions later. You might ride into town alive tomorrow, or you might already be an eerie story around another campfire. But given what you've endured, surviving to see that sunrise is already remarkable. Asterisk, asterisk, even a thin chance at survival required the right equipment. Experienced frontiersmen carried every tool they could. A sharp knife, a bowie or camp knife, was considered essential for cutting rope, processing game, or carving wood. You tucked one in your boot to shave, 2 whittle fence posts, even as an improvised weapon, a bedroll or blanket. Cowboys always slept wrapped in their wool blanket or bedroll. It was your only protection from cold nights. A firearm, a rifle or revolver with plenty of ammunition was critical. Frontier guides stress that every man needed a rifle for hunting and defense. Today, that peace kept you from walking to town unarmed. Fire starting kit, matches often dipped in wax for weatherproofing, or flint and steel were carried religiously in a small tinder box. You needed fire for cooking, boiling water, and warmth no matter what weather came. Protective clothing, sturdy boots, oilcloth coat or duster, and a wide-brimmed hat to block sun and rain. Every cowboy wore a bandana too, both as dust mask and sweat rag. Your hat shielded your eyes at noon and sheltered you from that afternoon rain. Water container. Leather or metal canteens were indispensable. Literature notes that a good canteen could last a lifetime on the trail. You tied yours outside your saddle and gave thanks whenever it had a drop left. Ropes and tools. A lariat lasso was as crucial to a cowboy as a pen to a doctor. You might need rope to catch stray cattle or secure supplies. Small tools like pliers, a hammer and nails. A canvas tarp or cooking pot were also carried, since any gear failure could be catastrophic. Food rations, dried beans, salted pork, beef jerky, and hardtack biscuits were standards. They were bland and tedious, but lasted far longer than fresh supplies. You ate this sparse fare all day and hoped it would last out. Each of these items could have aided you, and each of them was too often in short supply or completely absent for newcomers. Even the best-equipped pioneers lived on the edge of survival. All the gear in the world couldn't fix the deadly Wild West. It could only give you a fighting chance. Imagine yourself waking up tomorrow in your comfortable bed, reading this story at your desk. Think of the electric heater, cold drink from a fridge, and indoor plumbing you enjoy. Then remember this fictional day we've shared on the frontier, a day of relentless struggle. Every breath, every drink, every step was a victory. History's lesson is clear. The Wild West was not an amusement park. It was literally life and death at every turn. Modern viewers wear cowboy hats for fun, but those hats were worn by people who literally needed every tool, every drop of water, and every bullet they had just to wake up tomorrow. You've seen from dawn to dawn how the West tested every passing soul. Sickness, exposure, violence, and hunger all held equal licensing. By sunrise, you learned the truth. Unlike the movies, the West didn't spare anyone foolish enough to believe it was just a game. So, as you close your eyes tonight, know that your ancestors who ventured out here needed bravery beyond measure, and perhaps a bit of luck as well. You were unarmed against nature, armed only with hope. In that regard, you did as well as anyone. You made it through. The next time a Western legend inspires you, remember this story. Because, in reality, without modern comfort and technology, you wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Sources: accounts from 19th century pioneers and historians describing frontier life highlight just how deadly everyday life was on the old frontier. These facts reveal the brutal truth behind the myths.